Hello everyone. I have come once again with another video of mine in which I am going to talk about important questions from Reverie and Echoes. And this video is going to be very helpful for ISC students who are going to appear for their English literature exam this year. Whenever you are preparing stories and poems for examination point of view, you need to focus on certain things. Is to be thorough with the text. You need to understand the poem or the story that you are doing. You need to read it line by line, understand the meanings and explanations of the text. And with that, you also need to know the background and the themes. Please understand, themes are the most important topic that has to be covered while doing any story or poem. Because you see, in ISC level, like in class 12, you will ask the questions which are based on theme or background of that text. Right? It's not only that you will be asked only what is given in the text in that particular story or the poem. You will be asked, you need to prepare a kind of critical analysis of that particular work of literature, and you need to know about the poet, you need to know about poet or writer, you need to know about the background, means the time when it was written, and also the themes, the setting, the plot of the story, the characters which are there in that story or the poem. So if you prepare these things, then it will be very easy for you to write the answers, and your answers are also going to be of very good quality. Okay, so as an ISC student, please understand you have only 5 stories and 5 poems that you are supposed to prepare for your exam, and they should be done focusing on the critical appreciation or critical analysis of that particular story or the poem. See, first of all, let us talk about the poems that we have in our syllabus this year. First is The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy, Birches by Robert Frost, Crossing the Bar by Tennyson, Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold, We Are the Music Makers by Arthur William Edgeworth O'Shaughnessy. Now, see, I have mentioned here, out of these 5 poems, The Darkling Thrush has been asked twice, in 19 and 21. So it can be asked in 23 too. Then Birches has never been asked till now. Crossing the Bar was there in 2019. Dover Beach in 2020. And We Are the Music Makers also was there in 2020. So from this, we may come to know that Birches is a poem which has never been asked. Okay. So we have to put a little more emphasis on that. But we can't ignore any story or poem this time. See, out of now, as you know the pattern of the question paper, you will be getting 2 5 markers, 2 5 marks questions on any 2 poems, 2 separate poems or stories. And then there will be 2 questions for 10 marks, out of which you will have to attempt any one. So in one section, like if we talk about the poems, you will be getting 4 poems out of 5. Similarly, in stories also, you will be getting 4 stories out of 5. Now you all may say that we can omit one, but no, you can't, because 5 marks questions are compulsory for you to do. In case you do not prepare one story or one poem and you get 5 marks question from that, then you'll be in a fix, right? So we cannot omit anything, we cannot neglect any chapter, any story or any poem. You have to do all 5, and that way 5 is not a big deal. When we talk about the poem The Darkling Thrush, so these are the 4 questions which I feel as important, and you can say that if you prepare these 4 questions in a way, you will be able to prepare the whole poem. Whatever is asked from that poem, you will be easily able to answer that. First is describe bleak picture of the day as described by the poet, means the atmosphere that has been created by the poet, the way he talks about the nature. How does the atmosphere suddenly change? It changes as soon as he listens to that song of the thrush. Then you need to explain that. What are the poet's feelings at the end of the poem? So here is the theme of hopefulness that the poet gets, which you need to discuss. And there is a gradual shift from gloomy despair to sense of hopefulness. Discuss. So this question is like that of a 10 marks question, where it is where you need to describe the whole poem, how his mood shifts, how his mood changes, and it changes with the song of that bird. So how that bird or the song of the bird brings hopefulness in the poet at the time when he was so disappointed and so disheartened, when he was thinking that everything has come to an end and now there is no joy in the world anymore. So these four questions, children, if you prepare them, I am very sure that you will be able to do any question that comes from the poem. The next is birches. First, explain how the birch tree becomes a vehicle to transcend from the harsh realities of the world to the imaginary world of peace. Then, birches is a nostalgic celebration of youthful joy while also juxtaposing childish spontaneity with the more serious, mundane realities of adulthood. Comment. Then Robert Frost's Birches is a nostalgic celebration of youthful joy. Comment. So these three questions talk about the basic themes that run throughout the poem Birches. If you prepare these questions, you will definitely be able to answer any question that comes. Then Crossing the Bar. The poem Crossing the Bar is a poem of affirmation and faith. Justify. Death is a way returning home. Discuss with reference to the poem. In the poem, discuss why the thought of death poses no fear for the poet. What are the natural elements that the poet uses as metaphors in the poem? Why do you think the poet has used the word Pilate to refer to the god in the poem? Give reasons to support your answer. The poem is actually very important, and these five questions cover all important areas of the poem. Then about Dover Beach, describe the moonlit scene as described by the poet at the beginning of the poem. How does the poet introduce the note of melancholy and disturbance? In this context, what does he say about faith? What does the poet say about the world in which he finds himself? With reference to the poem, discuss Arnold's stance on global modernization. How is the image of sea used as both a physical or metaphorical presence in the poem? Next is We Are the Music Makers. How is the power of music brought out in the poem? Why does the poet call the artists movers and shakers of the world? Whom does the poet call music makers in the poem? In what way are they dreamers of dreams? Explain the allusions to Babel and Nineveh as used in the poem. The poem posits that art has a revolutionary power. So the fifth and the first question are almost the same, where you have to describe the power of music or the power of art that has been described by the poet. So these are all important questions. Why am I calling them important? Because if you prepare these questions, you will be able to do justice with any question that comes in your exam. Now let's talk about the stories also, children. We have 5 stories, that is To Build a Fire, The Story of an Hour, The Singing Lesson, The Sound Machine, and B. Wordsworth. So from these stories also, I have given here certain questions, and if you prepare these questions, these are most of them are thematic questions, so you will be able to cover all important areas of that particular story. So from To Build a Fire, describe the man's repeated attempts to keep himself warm. Contrast the attitude of the man and his dog toward the weather. What does the man finally learn from his experience? The cold becomes a character. Give your views by referring to the story. Next is The Story of an Hour. Give an account of the thoughts and feelings which go through Mrs. Mallard's mind when she hears about the untimely and sudden death of her husband. What do you conclude by the struggles and challenges faced by women from this story? The story does not trace Lewis's repression, but her reaction to her husband's death says it all. Discuss. Then The Singing Lesson. Describe how the lesson as it progresses becomes an echo of Mrs. Meadows' feelings. Describe the interaction between Miss Meadows and the science mistress. Comment on Miss Meadows' behavior. How does the change in mood of Miss Meadows affect her music lessons? Elaborate. How is a working woman in the 19th century presented in the story? Then The Sound Machine. How does Roald Dahl depicts the theme of obsession in the story? Describe the events that occurred when Klosner went to the park with his sound machine. How is the theme of environment incorporated in the story? And last but not the least is B. Wordsworth. Describe the interaction between B. Wordsworth and the young narrator. What did the young narrator learn from his friend? Do you feel that B. Wordsworth was an escapist? Give reason. The story explores an unusual friendship between an old man and a boy. Discuss. How does Nepal contrast two modes of life, the modern and traditional, in his story? How is poetry intervened in it? All right. So these are the questions, and I'm very sure if you prepare these questions, you'll be able to score very good marks in your exam. All the very best and work hard. Bye bye.